Hello, I'm Helen from Cambridgeshire Libraries, and today I'm going to tell you a story all about a dragon. This is a story from the north of England called The Laidly Worm of Spindleston Heath. Once upon a time, far in the north of England, there lived a king. He lived in Bamborough Castle, and he had a beautiful wife and 2 children. His son was named Childwind, and his daughter was named Margaret, and they were both as beautiful and brave as each other. Now at the time, child meant a young nobleman who was not yet a knight. So one day Childwind went to the king and queen and said, "It is time for me to seek my fortune over the sea. I will come back a knight who can protect the kingdom from evil." So he set off to seek his fortune over the sea, and not long after, his mother, the queen, died. The king mourned her for 7 long years. He didn't think he would find a wife so kind and lovely in all the world. And while the king mourned, it was Princess Margaret who cared for the castle. She fed the people and paid the servants and kept the golden key to the castle, the one that locked the gate and kept all within safe from evil. One day, when the king was out hunting many miles from home, he came across the most beautiful lady he'd ever seen. No one knows exactly what she looked like, only that she was a great beauty. Well, the king fell in love instantly and asked the lady to marry him. The lady smiled a secret smile to herself. She was only too happy to marry the king of Bamborough Castle. Well, when Princess Margaret heard the news, she made sure everything was ready to welcome the new queen. On the day of the wedding, Margaret waited at the castle gates with the golden key to the castle. A long procession of people drew near to the castle, servants and soldiers, jesters and jugglers, and at the end of the procession was the king with his new queen. Margaret bowed and said, "Welcome to the new queen. Everything that is here is yours." And she gave the queen the golden key. The queen snatched the key from the princess, and as she did so, she heard a whisper among her soldiers and courtiers. "This new queen is a beauty, but she'll never be a match for Princess Margaret." "No, she'll never be a match for Princess Margaret." "No, never, as long as she lives." When she heard that, the queen grew very angry and said, "I'll soon put an end to her beauty." Well, unfortunately, the queen was also a witch. That night, she went to the castle dungeon and made a spell, which went like this. "I spell you to be a laidly worm. A princess shall you never be, until Childwind, the king's own son, comes to the hill with kisses 3. Until the world comes to an end, a princess shall you never be." Well, a laidly worm is the worst curse the queen could have put on the princess, for laidly meant loathsome, and a worm was not a little wriggly thing in the ground, but a great, big, serpent-like dragon. That night, Princess Margaret went to bed a beautiful young woman. In the morning, her ladies-in-waiting came to wake her as usual. But when they pulled back the sheet, the ladies ran shrieking and flapping from the room, spreading the news to everyone they could find. "There's a dragon in the castle! There's a dragon in the castle! There's a dragon in the castle!" But the dragon, who was really the princess transformed, didn't gobble them up. She slithered out of bed and slid out of the castle and snaked her way all the way to Spindleston Heath, or hill, where she lay basking with her terrible snout in the air. But from that night onwards, terrible things happened every night. Animals were snatched and crops churned up and barns burnt, and everyone was terrified of what the laidly worm would do next. Well, no one in the land knew what to do, so they asked a mighty warlock for his help, and this is what he said. "Each day milk 7 cows and leave the milk in a trough at the foot of Spindleston Heath, for it is hunger that drives the dragon to snatch crops and animals. But if you want to free yourself of the dragon forever, you must send to Childwind across the sea." So a message was sent across the sea to the prince to say that an evil dragon had snatched his sister and was terrorizing the land. When the prince heard the news, he swore an oath to avenge his sister. So he got 33 men together and built a long ship out of rowanwood, for he knew that rowanwood repels evil magic, and they rowed all the way across the sea to Bamborough Castle. But as Child Wind neared the shore, the Queen knew something was afoot. She stood on the cliff top, overlooking the North Sea, and as the prince's ship came closer, she summoned a huge storm to keep him from reaching the land. But the Rowanwood boat cut through the waves and the wind and made it safely to land. Next, Child Wind saw the Laidly Worm basking on Spindleston Heath, so he summoned his soldiers and said, "Attack that dragon!" But as soon as they reached the dragon, a voice sounded nearby, a voice that Child Wind knew at once was his sister Margaret's, and she said, "Oh, quit your sword, unbend your bow, and give me kisses 3, for though I am a Laidly Worm, no harm I'll do to thee." So Child Wind approached the dragon and kissed it once, twice, 3 times upon its slimy, warty mouth. And with a hiss and a roar, the dragon writhed and wriggled until before the prince stood his sister, Princess Margaret. "It was the Queen who did this to me, brother, for she is an evil witch who has our father under a wicked spell." And together, Child Wind and the Princess Margaret went to the witch's chamber. And when they found her, she cowered in fear, for her spell had been broken, and all the prince and princess had to do was touch her with a twig of rowanwood, and she began to change. She shriveled up until she was nothing more than an ugly toad. The King and Princess Margaret and Child Wind lived happily ever after and were never troubled by the evil Queen again. And to this day, if you visit Bamborough Castle, you might see an ugly toad crawling around the keep.